Replicas, the worst sci-fi I've seen in a long time. I like to think of myself as someone who loves sci-fi. Even the movies that have some flaws, I look past them because I love the genre. There are some movies like Pandorum, for example, that have some flaws, but I can look past them because I just really enjoyed the movie. And I thought that might be the case for Replicas as well. I like The Matrix. I think Keanu Reeves is kind of cool in some movies. In others, he's a little bit lackluster. And in this one, he's not great at all. He's really bad, actually. But yeah, I've enjoyed Keanu Reeves in a sci-fi before, so I thought, hey, Replicas is probably going to be pretty okay. At least, it's got Keanu Reeves, it's got sci-fi. How can it go wrong? But dear God, it went wrong. Not all of them can work out, right, guys? So it starts with our boy Keanu in a research facility. He's a neuroscientist, and his name is William Foster. I'm just gonna call him Keanu because he just plays Keanu Reeves in this movie. So he works for this company called Bio9, and basically they're like a cloning facility. This film takes place in the near future, and in this world, people can donate their bodies when they die to this testing facility where they try and imprint your consciousness into a robot. So this dead donor guy shows up 7 hours after dying.
Time since cardiac death?
7 hours, 15 minutes.
They put this helmet thing on him and it shoots a needle into his eye, and somehow they upload his consciousness. I'm not sure if the quality of the brain would degrade or not. I mean, 7 hours after death is a pretty long time, but hey, I don't know the science behind it, so I'm just gonna run with it. For whatever reason, Keanu Reeves starts explaining to everyone that works there what they're about to do. Like, oh, we're gonna transfer this guy's consciousness into this robot. Even though you all work here and you all already know this.
We are going to take his biological brain, replicate the human mind.
And they reveal later that this is one of many failed attempts.
It spoke.
They've done that before.
This one spoke.
And I can't tell you how amazing that would have been 8 months ago.
So obviously these people know what's going on. So basically he's just explaining it to the audience. It's very nice of him.
Then check this out.
This man is dead.
So then Keanu starts using this fancy sci-fi computer headset thing to imprint the mind of this guy into the robot. The imprint fails, the mind refuses the body and starts destroying itself. Why didn't they restrain the robot? You know, especially if they're imprinting someone who has military training.
Sergeant, you've transitioned.
Like, if anything goes wrong, they have control of a robot's body. That's kind of a safety hazard, but okay. So Keanu's boss man gets mad at him because he's like, oh my God, I can't believe you failed again. We're gonna lose funding. Then Keanu's like, oh, I'm this close to getting it right.
Well, it just isn't close enough, is it, Bill?
Obviously, there's some weird moral implications here. You know, you're messing with someone's mind after they've already died, making them go through some more suffering, you know, confusing the shit out of them because they're not sure what's going on. And his wife brings this up and she's like, are you sure this is okay?
It actually spoke.
It spoke? If it could speak, then it could feel.
His wife's a nurse, so he's like, but you try and save people at the hospital. How come I can't bring people back to life and force them into a robot?
How many times have you had a patient flatline in the ER and you brought them back?
My patients don't rip themselves apart.
I know that they're donors, but it's pretty clear from this guy's reaction that they're not really sure what's going on. How would this company get donors to begin with? Do they just not tell these people what happens to everyone else? Oh, and by the way, there's like a 99% chance that when you come back, you're gonna freak out and beat yourself to death. Just sign here if you're fine with that. So this guy who kind of looks like knockoff Mark Zuckerberg is Keanu Reeves' friend, and very close friend, because he just kind of waltzes into Keanu Reeves' home and he's like,
Hola, Foster family.
He's like Keanu's boyfriend almost. Like Keanu's secretly gay for Ed because he constantly spends time with him in this movie. Ed even stays at Keanu's place when they leave for vacation. And I wouldn't be surprised because Keanu and his wife have literally zero chemistry.
Lives won't have to be cut short.
But that doesn't matter because 5 minutes later, while they're driving, Keanu's wife gets impaled by a branch. Yeah, they just barely miss a truck, and then they swerve off the road and hit a tree, and then go into a lake. His wife is dead, and all of his kids just drown in the car because he's just sitting there like an idiot as the car starts going under the water. The car hits multiple objects, but for whatever reason, none of the airbags deploy. This is the worst vehicle in existence. What car company is this? Because their safety inspector sucks. It was probably Tyler Durden from Fight Club, you know? That would make more sense. So Keanu's entire family just dies, and he is completely fine. He's very lucky. His acting is atrocious in this scene. This has got to be one of the most traumatizing things that could happen to anyone ever. And he's acting like his Lego Millennium Falcon just got destroyed. And it's so funny because when the rain is falling on his dead family, if you zoom in on his wife, you can see that she's clenching her eyes because the water is getting in them. So obviously Keanu is gonna want to try and clone his family. So he calls his boyfriend Ed. Ed comes over and Ed tries to talk sense into him, but he's like, no, we gotta do it. It's happening no matter what. And Ed's like, all right, well, you call the shots. You're top anyhow, so.
No way, I can't.
They are not gone. Not yet.
Keanu is very clearly the dominant one in this gay relationship because Ed does pretty much everything. Somehow he takes care of the bodies off screen, and then he steals a shit ton of lab equipment from their facility, as if no one would notice that. And then they put them in Keanu Reeves' basement, and they start cloning his family. And Keanu doesn't even compensate Ed in any way for helping him. Like, he doesn't give him any money, doesn't do anything. I mean, if you want this dick, then you're gonna have to continue helping me, or you're gonna have to find someone else. So they run into a big problem. Ed could only find 3 cloning pods.
There's only 3 pods.
Do not tell me there aren't 4.
But there's 4 dead family members. So Keanu's like, all right, I'm gonna write all their names on pieces of paper and put them in a hat and choose one, and that's the one that I'm not gonna clone. Even though he could clone 3 and then just use one of the pods and clone the last one afterwards, you know? But we'll get back to that. And he tells Ed to pick a name. Like, you've already put so much on this guy, just leave him alone. So he picks his daughter Zoe. So she is not going to be brought back. Ed states that he could only bring 3 cloning pods because that's all they have. But when we see him at the lab later on, he walks past these cloning pods. So obviously there weren't just 3 of them. Maybe he was getting back at Keanu because he was, you know, mistreating him. He's like, ha, I'm gonna make it so he can only bring back 3, even though he works at the same place and he would definitely know that there were more than 3. So then Ed's in the basement doing all the math, you know, trying to figure out how they can do this. Even though Keanu has a higher position than him, he's the neuroscientist. Shouldn't he be the one figuring all this out? Isn't he the smart one? Why is he making Ed do everything? What? They utter a bunch of science mumbo-jumbo to make it seem authentic when it clearly isn't.
You gotta watch the levels. The levels are everything. You need to watch the levels. The pods can't lose power. And that'll throw off all the levels. And I just told you how important those things are.
Apparently, it'll take 17 days for his 3 family members to grow in the pods.
What about Zoe?
Why couldn't you just clone Zoe once the other 3 are finished and keep those 3 in like a comatose state, you know, keep them asleep or something and wait for Zoe to be finished cloning? Then you'll have your whole family. But instead, Keanu's like, oh, there's nothing I can do, I guess. Zoe's gone. So I'm going to try to erase her completely from my wife's memory and from my kids' memories. I guess he just didn't think about all of the people that know Zoe. Like, he can't erase their memories. So Keanu uploaded all of his family's consciousnesses onto these hard drive things. They're huge. I'm not sure in this futuristic world why they would be so big. I mean, usually when society advances in technology, things get smaller, right? Not bigger, but what do I know? So then Keanu goes into his family's memories while they're sleeping in the pods and deletes Zoe completely. That's a handy ability you got there, just to go into someone's mind and erase this little bit of their memory. Very specific bits. And if you're deleting Zoe completely, that would be kind of a monumental task. It would be kind of impossible, actually, because you would have to delete every single moment your wife remembered her, and your kids. And Zoe's what, like 3 years old or something, 4? So you'd be effectively deleting like 4 years of all these memories built up with Zoe. That's a lot of time that you're just erasing from someone's mind. How would this not cause an issue? And more importantly, how can you have science that can do this, but you can't put consciousness from a human body into a robot body. How that would be easier just doesn't make any sense to me, but I obviously am not a scientist, so I don't know for sure. And how you can even upload someone's mind into like a hard drive after they're already dead is beyond me, but wouldn't it make more sense if the donors had their consciousnesses like uploaded while they were still alive and then updated as they grew up? You can't take data out of a mind that's dead. It's also silly sci-fi, so maybe I'm just being too nitpicky. So these two policemen knock on Keanu's door, and they ask him if he knows anything about someone stealing all of the car batteries from all the cars around the area. And he's like, no, I don't know anything about that.
Did they get you too?
No. No, they didn't.
You're the lucky guy.
How'd they do this without anyone noticing? Why wasn't there a single scene of that happening? And do car batteries just like conveniently work with these cloning pods? Okay. What, do they connect them up with jumper cables? So Ed goes to work while Keanu is at home just chilling, you know, working on his family. Because, of course, Ed has to go to work. He gets yelled at by the boss man. The boss man's like, oh, if you don't get this thing working, and if Keanu doesn't come to work, this whole thing's gonna be shut down.
I'm sure he'll be in soon. You know, William, he's got a really strong immune system.
So one of Keanu Reeves' son's teachers shows up randomly at their home. And she's like, well, what happened to Matt? Where'd he go? I've been calling the mom and she hasn't been answering. Okay, then leave a fucking message, you weirdo. Why are you showing up at their house? So then Ed's like, oh yeah, he has chickenpox and he went to live with his grandparents.
His grandparents are dead, Ed. How am I gonna explain that?
How did you not know that, Ed? You're so involved with this family. You'd assume that would come up in conversation at some point. How the hell did you not know? I mean, you guys are fucking each other in the ass. You would assume you would talk about some personal stuff sometimes. Maybe that's crossing a boundary for Keanu. So while his family is incubating in these pods, Keanu tries to fill in for his family's absence, talking to his dead kids' friends online, giving them all sorts of excuses why they haven't seen each other in a while. So Keanu tries and fails and tries and fails to upload the consciousness of his family into the clone bodies. Ed comes over and he's like, bro, it's been 17 days. The clones gotta come out now. He says they better come out or they're gonna keep aging.
In a couple of days, even if you do figure this out, they will have aged years.
Wait, why? Why would they keep aging?
Your son, droopy old man sack.
If they're clones, shouldn't they stay the same age as they were? And how come the mom takes just as much time to clone as the kids when her body is much larger? So they take all the clones out of the pods and put them in their beds. So he's got them all sleeping and he's trying to find a way to upload the consciousness of his family into these clones. But they're all sleeping, right? They're all in a comatose state. If he can keep them that way, why wouldn't he keep them that way for another 17 days? So he can bring Zoe back too. Why'd he give up on her so easily? It's so silly. What, another 17 days isn't worth your daughter's life? Okay. I mean, yeah, that is kind of a long time for his kids to stay home from school and whatnot. But they've already stayed home from school for 17 days. Just say they all have, like,
chickenpox,
pneumonia.
So then Keanu makes a big discovery. It's not the brain, it's the body.
We just have to trick the synthetic mind into believing that it has its biological, actual flesh and blood body.
The reason the human mind was not being imprinted successfully over to the robot body was because you need to trick the mind into believing it has a human body, or else it'll freak out, right? It needs to think it has lungs and a heart and all this stuff. You know, the brain will freak out and shut down because it thinks it's dying. That was the problem. Are you telling me they just figured this out? What? That's something that you would figure out before testing on the first subject. Are you kidding me? Of course the brain needs to think that it has a human body. What, you think you're just gonna shove someone's consciousness into a robot and be like, all right, just leave it, it's fine. These are neuroscientists. Why wouldn't they think of that until now? It's absurd. And if that's the reason the imprints were failing, then how come it was failing on the clones? The clones have human bodies, right? So that problem shouldn't arise then, right? So what was the problem then? What? So he tries imprinting on his wife again, and it miraculously works.
Really?
So Keanu's clone family is acting super strange. They're trying to acclimate to their bodies, so they're acting really weird. I'm assuming that's why. I don't know exactly how cloning works, but if they're clones, shouldn't they act exactly the same way? If they have the same consciousness, I mean, what would be the difference? I mean, they should be freaking out that they can't remember anything.
Mom, the smoke went sour. Did you go shopping? I just bought this the other day. It's curdled.
Also, clones don't carry over any body modifications, like tattoos or piercings. But his wife still has earrings. It's so dumb. Also, there's a part where Keanu, like, grabs orange juice, and he's like, oh, let me pour that for you. And he pours it all over the table by accident. But no one seems to notice. And in the next shot, they show the table, but there's no orange juice. And then Keanu's son starts pouring syrup all over his pancakes, right? And then we get a shot of Keanu's wife on a run. We return to the kitchen, and wow, all the syrup is gone off of this kid's plate. Did he just slurp it all up or something? Being a clone makes you do some weird stuff, I guess. So another donor comes in, and Keanu's like, oh, I don't want to fuck this up again, so I'm just gonna go to the bathroom real quick, put the headset on myself, and upload my consciousness into this hard drive.
You in there, Bill?
Yeah.
So he explains this really stupid science, like, oh, I'm gonna use my alive brain data as a baseline to simulate the human body, and then I'm gonna put, like, the dead brains on top of it for the consciousness. So the consciousness will connect with, like, the data of the body and be like, okay, well, I have a body, so it's all good. So you tell me they never ever tried this on a living person before? Just get like a bum off the street and give him $5 grand, and boom, you got your test subject. And not to mention, not all bodies are the same, right? They're all different shapes and sizes. Like, say I'm a midget donor, right? And my midget brain thinks I have a midget body. And they put my midget brain into a robot body with Keanu Reeves' regular body as the baseline. My midget brain's gonna be like, what the fuck? Why is my body all of a sudden so huge? It would not work. So his wife finally realizes that she doesn't remember the last 2 weeks.
I don't remember what I had for dinner last night. I don't remember leaving the clinic for Christmas break.
Or the last, like, 5 years, right? Because Zoe was erased, but let's just forget that. And what about their crashed car? How did he explain that to his wife? Like, the car just vanished? Did he sell it in a day without telling her? Is that what he told her? Like, why wasn't she like, oh, where's the car? You know? She would remember the car, I'm assuming. And what if someone finds the crashed car? Like, he didn't plan for anything. It's so stupid. And this guy's a neuroscientist. He's so smart, but he... So Keanu's daughter has a really vivid nightmare of her mom dying in the car accident. Obviously, because it really did happen.
Mom, is Mom dead?
What?
Sorry, Dad. Sorry, Dad.
And then Keanu's like, oh shit, that's not good. So he sedates her, brings her into the basement, hooks her up to the headset thing, and starts removing the memory of the crash. So you're telling me he removed all the memories of Zoe, but he didn't think about removing the memory of the crash? Like the incident that made all this stuff happen to begin with, he didn't erase that part? What? You would assume that'd be kind of an important memory to erase. So while he's erasing Sophie's memory, his wife comes downstairs. So did she just happen to wake up right now and go downstairs like, oh, I wonder what he's doing at this exact moment? Or was she awake this whole time and he was just an idiot and did it anyway while she was still awake? You know what? It's okay. So obviously she questions him. She's like, what the hell are you doing to her?
William, tell me the truth.
He could have just said, yeah, she fell in love with a boy at school. He broke her heart, so she wants me to remove the memory of him. Boom, there you go. Perfect excuse. And I thought about that in like 1 second. But instead, he's like, you know what? She would love to know the truth. And that excuse would totally work too. Because if he's wiping her memory, obviously she wouldn't remember. So she couldn't say anything against it. Yeah, I was like, you know what? It's too late. I can't think of anything. So might as well just tell her that she's dead, that she's a clone, that all of our kids are clones and they're also dead. And she instantly believes him too. Like, what? Upon hearing this crushing news, right, his wife just immediately accepts it.
I'm dead.
She's like, oh, makes sense. Yep, we all died and we're all clones. Yeah, okay. Like, what? Wouldn't that take some processing? I think anyone that heard that would reject it at first. They'd be like, no, you're insane. That can't be true. And then they would mull it over in their minds and then, you know, maybe make some connections here and there and then be like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And then slowly begin to accept it. I mean, she has a little cry over it, so I guess that's enough. So they all go shopping for a Christmas tree, and their kids are like, oh, I like the fake Christmas tree. And his wife's like, I don't like the fake Christmas tree because it's fake and it's not authentic. Huh? Get it?
No, I hate those ones. They're fake.
A little bit on the nose there with the comparisons, but I guess it works. And obviously Ed is with them because Ed is always with them. What, does he have no other friends? He doesn't have a family of his own? Dude, get a life. Play some video games or something. Watch a movie. Stop spending all your time with this person's family. It's awkward. You're making things weird. So then at dinner, Keanu's kids are like, why is Zoe carved into this thing?
Who is Zoe?
Who?
Because Keanu is a complete idiot.
I'm not crazy. I remember photos in the upstairs hallway.
So Keanu's wife starts to piece things together. She realizes that there's photos that are missing, and she questions why there's a bunk bed. And this is how a brilliant neuroscientist responds to these questions.
That thing that happened? There might be some things.
So the boss man comes over to Keanu's house, and he's like, I know what you've been doing.
Subjects 346, 347, 348.
I know that your family has died in a car crash and that they're all clones. He's like, all these clones are Bio9 property. What, so Keanu didn't do anything to cover this up? Were these clones recorded in like a Bio9 database somewhere? How stupid is this guy? He's like, oh, work will just never find out about this somehow. Apparently the boss knows about all this stuff because Ed spilled the beans on everything that Keanu was up to. So while the boss man is talking to Keanu at his house, he says something like, oh, imagine all the stuff we could do if we could find a way to imprint a consciousness into anything.
The mind of a hacker loaded into the virus.
Now that would be crazy, right? It's so stupid. What would that accomplish, loading the hacker's mind into a virus? Just give them a keyboard and a mouse and they're perfectly fine. What, so the hacker's gonna load into the computer like a white blood cell and fight the virus, like within the computer? So the boss man threatens Keanu's family. He's like, you better say your goodbyes because they're Bio9 property and they're all gonna be killed. So then the boss man's like, bring me your hard drive with your consciousness in it, even though I just threatened to kill your family. I completely don't expect you to run away right now. So Keanu comes back with the massive hard drive thing. He tries to sedate the boss man, but he fails, so he smacks him with the massive hard drive. And then he wraps it in tinfoil and puts it in the microwave so it burns. The boss man has these guards waiting out front, but they kind of just mosey around. They don't do anything. They just kind of stand there. So Keanu and his family drive off, even though the boss man's guards are literally right there. So boss man eventually wakes up and he finds the hard drive in the microwave. He's like, oh, damn it, that's so annoying.
I'm disappointed, Bill.
Boss man's guard takes out like a 2005 iPad.
Here, look at this one. Toshiba Handybook.
And he's like, hey, look, I know where they're headed. So apparently there are trackers in the spines of all the clones. And Keanu works here, right? How did he not think about the trackers in his family? Did he not think about removing them, before starting the cloning process? I guess not. I mean, that's kind of weird, right? I mean, even if Ed didn't spill the beans on you, they would eventually find out because there's trackers in your family. So that obviously means there's a link to Bio9. They would have, like, your family in a database somewhere, like, tracking them. But this is yet another oversight by Keanu. So what they do is they travel to the hospital. They get in there just fine with their entire family, and the wife's like, I know what we can do. Let's put a defibrillator on the kids and myself, and the electricity going through our bodies will destroy the trackers. And the mom's like, if we put too much electricity through our kids, they'll die, but let's just do it anyway, I guess. So they do it, and they destroy all the trackers. I'm not sure how they knew that the trackers were destroyed, but they just got lucky, I guess. And the kids aren't questioning this at all. They're like, okay, yeah, just shock me. That makes sense. Who are we running from again? Who knows? They don't even know that they're clones. This must be so confusing for them, but they don't ask any questions. They're just like, okay, this makes sense. Let's go. Put this thing on me. Shock me. All right, let's keep going. So Keanu and his family drive to a dock with a bunch of boats tied to it. Keanu jumps the fence and he finds Ed's boat and he's like, all right, time to find the keys so we can all get on this boat and sail off into the sunset or something. I don't know what they plan on doing, just running away forever? But for whatever reason, his family just stays in the car. You'd assume that they would follow him to the boat, but they don't. Like, why are they still sitting in the car? They would have to jump the fence eventually to get to the boat, right? If he had the keys to the boat. But they just stay in the car. So that's weird. Well, the reason they stay in the car is so Boss Man's guards can show up and steal them away and keep Keanu there. So they do that, and Keanu's like, oh shit, they took my family. That's fucking annoying. So Keanu drives to the facility, and he's like, what the heck, guys? That's like totally not cool that you stole my family. This is when we find out that Ed snitched on him.
I was supposed to get rid of the bodies. Your bodies. But I couldn't do it. I'm sorry. This wasn't supposed to happen like this. This got way out of hand.
It's all right, Ed.
Boss Man then kills Ed to send a message to Keanu. That's very weird. Why would you kill one of your valuable employees, you know? He's a very smart person. I mean, you could have even used his mind in your tests or whatever. But yeah, sure, shoot him instead of one of the 3 clones that are standing here that you were going to kill anyway. That makes sense. And wouldn't it be far more effective to kill one of Keanu's family members that he spent all his time bringing back, right? That would probably send a much better message, and you wouldn't lose an employee over it. I mean, they were probably going to fire Ed anyway, but what about Ed's parents? Well, Ed probably doesn't have parents because he's never anywhere but with Keanu. So Ed doesn't have any family or friends, so yeah, fine, just kill him. So Keanu's like, hey, don't kill me, or I won't give you the algorithm. It's in my mind, and I can somehow put it into a computer again. Doesn't that require like the headset thing? Don't they need to poke his brain with the needle and upload his consciousness again to do this? I guess not. How did he just like memorize the data and recopy it? Whatever, just don't think about it. It's science. So Keanu uploads his data to this robot. It breaks free from its useless restraints, so that's obviously why they weren't using restraints in the beginning, because they're useless. It runs into the room where the boss man is, and it says, Jones.
I'm here for my family.
So the robot is also Keanu. So there's 2 Keanu right now. There's robot and the real Keanu. And the robot's CGI is so awful. It throws the CGI body and it looks terrible. Like really bad. The CGI is atrocious. If the consciousness in the robot is Keanu, why would it just like accept what's going on right now? You know, wouldn't it have to like wake up and be like, okay, who am I? Where am I? What's going on? Why would it just like instantly break out of the seat and be like, all right, I need to save my family? It's very strange. Maybe Keanu programmed it to do that. They just don't explain any of it, and it's so annoying. It's not upset that it's a robot and it has no soul, and it's just a copy of another person that has a family, you know? If it's Keanu's consciousness, shouldn't it love Keanu's family as much as Keanu does? And it kind of sucks knowing that you're a robot and the real you has your family, right? And you can't do anything about it. But yeah, sure, I guess if I randomly woke up as a robot, I would do what real me tells me to do. Because whatever, my life's meaningless. That wouldn't fuck me up at all. Boss Man is fatally injured, and he's like, yo, bro, if I die, someone's just gonna replace me and make your life a living hell. So Keanu's like, you know what I can do? I can put the helmet thing on you, clone you, and then put your consciousness into that clone, and we can just like make a deal, right? You can let me live as long as I save you.
Sooner or later, they'll find you. Not if we work together.
Bill, are you negotiating?
So they put the helmet thing on Boss Man. They clone him. Then 17 days pass. And look, Keanu finally created Zoe. Why he didn't do it in the beginning, who knows? But here she is now. Very cool. Also, for whatever reason, his kids don't question any of this as strange. They're like, okay, well, I guess we have a sibling who just randomly popped out of nowhere, and she's like 4 years old. That makes sense. Let's just bounce around because we're so happy. Look, we're a happy family. So I guess Keanu quit his job and lives with his weird clone family now, who will all die prematurely because clones have a much shorter lifespan than like an actual person, but I guess don't think about that. So the bad guy wasn't defeated. The evil boss man, he just kind of comes back to life and he's able to do all this shady shit with random people's consciousnesses to make millions of dollars because Keanu was really selfish and wants his clone family. And guess what robot Keanu gets to do for the rest of his life? Which is like, you know, forever. He gets to work for Boss Man. Hell yeah. Now that's an existence I would want. All work, no play makes robot Keanu a happy boy. He never gets to see his family. He just gets to slave away constantly.
Oh, Bill, it's time to go to work.
You would assume that if it's a human consciousness, it would have human desires, but I guess not. Love, companionship, what's that? I don't know. So I'm going to do this new thing with my reviews from now on. I'm going to give 3 recommendations. So for this video, here are 3 sci-fi films that I think are amazing and you should check out.
Good morning, Sam. Do you want me to cut your hair there?
Lunar Industries remain. Some of this you know. I'm going to start at the top of the page.
Ska vi säga hej då till jorden? Hej då, jorden.
Vi är pionjärer som seglat längre ut.
Thank you so much for watching. If you know of any other really awful movies that you'd like me to review, leave them in the comment section down below. Please make sure to check out alienclothing.com. You can get cool shirts like this. Wow, so fashionable. There's a lot of really awesome shirts over there, so go check it out. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one, and always remember, science doesn't need to make sense, because science